and it's crazy on so many levels. And for me, it brings up numerous questions, not just, you know what I mean, for Troy Ave or whatever, but also, you know what I mean, for Math Hoffa, because he did the podcast with the homie Math, and what I did was I went and watched the whole interview in its entirety, so as not to be biased one way or the other. I needed the whole complete information, so I sat through that entire that podcast interview that he did with Troy Ave, and I objectively watched it. And then you know how dudes do. They'll take excerpts out and make videos of little excerpts or whatever. And the little excerpts that was running around was that basically Troy Ave speaking on the case. You know what I mean? Which was an active case. He's involved with it, so he's entitled to say what he wants. It's his joint. But a lot of street dudes were saying, yo, homie, damn, that's not the way to go, because, that's a pending active joint, and anything you say, especially on a platform such as that, can have a impact on a potential jury in a biased manner, because it can sway them in one particular way or the other, especially on a huge platform like that. And so after that incident, I followed the beef where China Mac and Math Hoffa kind of got into whatever. So again, I listened to that whole joint objectively. I listened to what China Mac was saying, his position. I listened to what Math Hoffa was saying, his position. And they both had valid points. But from a street perspective,
what they was beefing about? They was beefing about the Troy Ave situation?
They was beefing about the Troy Ave situation because China Mac was saying that he felt Math Hoffa as a street person, because China Mac said he knew Math Hoffa outside of the podcast, in the street and all that stuff, and he knew him as a street individual, and that as China Mac, considering himself as a street individual, from doing time and being in the elements of street cast, he felt that it was improper for Math Hoffa to allow Troy Ave to come on his podcast and say some of the things that he said. Because in China Mac's opinion, like I just told you, China Mac felt that, and I agreed with him on that particular point, China Mac felt that what Troy Ave was doing was kind of somewhat biased, because he's given a one-sided version of an event that took place that somebody else is being held accountable for in the court of law. So now, being that this man is held accountable for that situation that transpired between them two, court of law, anything that Troy Ave says, because this is a public setting, podcasts are public, and the public can view it, anything that Troy Ave says can possibly be viewed by potential jurors ahead of the trial and used to sway in a negative manner tax situation. So China Mac felt that was a violation, and they got into a huge back and forth on it, whatever. If you look it up, whatever they got on I think Math Hoffa went on China Mac live, and they got into a little heated situation. Now, what I said was what I agreed with Math Hoffa about, because like I told you, homie, for me it's always Brooklyn for the win. Again, I don't personally know Math Hoffa. I got introduced to Math Hoffa through the internet and watching him on the battles, watching him lay his Brooklyn thug down, watching him lay his punch you upside your head, and he smack DVDs if you do something that's out of pocket, and basically watching him rep for BK heavy on the battle rap scene. So I became a fan and a follower and an enjoyer of Math Hoffa's battle scene, battle music, when he do the battles. So now, and then, his personification and everything was that of, a solid street individual. So when China Mac took the position of, yo, homie, street dudes are not going to do that. Even if Math Hoffa and Tax Stone had their own little private issues or whatever, if we if China Mac position was if they're gonna be completely unbiased about it, if the dude Tax Stone go to trial and get found guilty at trial and catch a light bid, that'll all be because of whatever evidence that the prosecution produces at trial. It will secure conviction. China Mac was saying that it shouldn't be swayed by, you know what I mean, Troy Ave being able to come up on Math Hoffa podcast and say the things he said. Now, again, like I told you, I don't have no personal relationships with none of these dudes. Tax Stone, Math Hoffa, or Troy Ave. However, those are my younger brothers, my younger homies from Brooklyn. They all rep Brooklyn. I rep Brooklyn heavy. I rep Brooklyn my entire life heavy. So my body of work has been solidified in Brooklyn, which is how, you and I got together and began doing this summer series. So I feel, right, I'm qualified to speak on this public matter involving these Brooklyn individuals. You feel me? So my thing is, point Math position was, okay, China, if that's how you felt, you got my telephone number, homie. So you could have picked up the phone and called me directly and privately and said, yo, Math, what's good, homie? I got an issue with you letting the homie Troy come on the joint and give a one-sided version of events. You know what I mean? That's not solid. That's not street, because that could taint the man's upcoming trial. So in that aspect, Math Hoffa was 100% correct. Some things aren't meant for the public until and unless they're worked out privately first. You feel me? So Math Hoffa was 100% correct in his assertions that, yo, China, if you felt the way, homie, you know me, you got my number, you didn't have to do it on the public scene. I get that, right? So now push all that to the side, right? Now the homies, I'm in tune all the time. So the homies from BK, they know, oh, okay, so let me get back before I get too far ahead. I told you that I didn't have no personal private dealings with these dudes, right? But I did have a business dealing with a little homie Troy Ave out in Pennsylvania. I promote concerts and rap shows and parties and comedy events and all of that. And I was following the little homie music. I was loving what he was doing, and I was loving how he was independently, as an independent artist, putting on for Brooklyn and repping BK. Because I told you, and I'll continue, and I'll always tell you, for me, it's always going to be BK for the win. I rep and rock and fuck with other dudes, but I'm always going to ride for my hometown and root for my hometown the hardest and the strongest. So with Troy Ave being an independent artist and he was doing his thing, I said, all right, when it was time for me to start booking these shows and doing these things like that, homie was on my agenda. I booked the little homie, brought him out here, and, he did his thing. That was the crazy thing about that. That was in 2015. And at that event where I brought Troy Ave out, something similar to the event that he had, at that venue with the Tax Stone dude, took place. Shots was fired. Whatever dude got hit in the spot. Whatever. Ultimately, a little bit later on down the line, I got arrested for it and charged with it. And I ended up doing time for it. So that's going to transition me into everything that I'm leading up to say, homie, which is this. The article states that, right, so let's just, we always going to keep it, factual, homie. So the article is a TSR, I don't know, whatever that is, a news and politics article. Comes up on my news feed because I get news feeds, and it popped up on my news joint today. And there was an article written by somebody named Matthew McNulty. And the caption says, Troy Ave expected to testify at Tax Stone's murder trial for the fatal shooting of Troy Ave's bodyguard. All right, cool. I knew something like that was going to bound to be happening, even if they had to subpoena the law homie Troy Ave, because the video footage shows everything that transpired. So whoever didn't see it, whatever, go see it. I'm not going to sit here and reiterate all that, but it's a video that's out that showed the night of the incident, showed who was doing what, and everything that transpired. So whether Troy Ave wanted to testify or not, he probably would have been compelled to via subpoena from the prosecution based upon the video footage. All right, all that's solid. All of that's solid, homie. But now, when I get the article, as I'm reading the article, right, it says, the trial will likely focus on the rivalry between the two rappers, which escalated in a T.I. concert, blah, 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 back in 2016. Then it says, it says Taxstone, his real name, Troy Ave, his real name, saying that he reportedly shot at each other inside the venue, leading to the death of the bodyguard, the homie, Banger. R.I.P. to that man. Shouldn't have lost his life. And those type of situations should have never even occurred. But we dealing with the reality of it did, and we, and the aftermath of that is what we're speaking on. So if the article further goes on to say that Taxstone's DNA was eventually found on a hammer that was used in the fatal shooting, prompted his arrest a year later in 2017, January of 2017. The incident happened in 2016. He got arrested in January 2017, right? So then it says, the trial was delayed multiple times before its beginning on Wednesday, February 15th. So I'm believing that was yesterday. And then it says that Troy Ave, the former rapper and podcast host, faces life in prison if convicted. If convicted on the counts, right? So here's the problem. All that's fine and well. So here's the problem for me, right? So now you read the article further down. It says prosecutors revealed they have two cooperating witnesses, with Troy Ave being one of them, right? So this is not me. This is what the article says. So it says Taxstone already pleaded guilty to federal gun charges. However, he can't get sentenced to those gun charges that he pled guilty to until after the conclusion of the murder trial. Now, the article further goes on to state that about the other dude or whatever. The other dude is some dude that's facing 42 years in prison, and he's alleging that after the shooting, Taxstone told him about the shooting that he did. We're gonna talk about that too, homie, because all of this is the perfect opportunity to present information to the young homies regarding, how to keep your mouth shut and not trusting nobody, especially with information regarding criminal matters that you may be facing. So getting back to this joint here, it says, despite initially being charged with the murder, we're talking about Troy Ave now. It says, despite being initially charged with the murder, Troy later signed a cooperation agreement with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in 2017, with Taxstone being indicted shortly thereafter. So that's where it gets crazy for me, homie, because with my experiences going through the legal system and dealing with the legal systems, I know and understand what a cooperation agreement is. Now, you'll get the argument from a lot of dudes or different dudes saying that, a cooperation agreement doesn't necessarily mean that, that you have to snitch or that you're necessarily snitching. A cooperation agreement could simply mean that you're just telling on yourself. You're truthfully testifying to your involvement in a particular situation. Granted, I've heard all that before. I've heard that in the feds with dudes that was cooperating and all that. And I heard that when I was in the state with dudes that was doing the same thing, cooperating. Listen, some of that shit might be far-fetched. Some of that shit might be accurate. But to me, that's all booty. All booty cheese. Because, so what I do, you said you like to read and you like reading crime and punishment and stuff like that. I'm a studious individual too, so I like to read and do research, right? So what I did was, in order to be fair and objective, because again, I'm not taking no sides, homie. I don't personally know Tax. I don't personally know Troy Ave, although we did business together, and I don't personally know Matt Hoffa. I enjoyed Troy Ave's music. I enjoyed Matt Hoffa's podcast at times. I enjoy his battle rap music. I don't know Tax Stone from nowhere, so I don't have no, you know what I mean? I never even listened to his podcast, so I don't know him from nowhere. So with all that being said and done, when I Googled, I know what a cooperation agreement is, but I wanted to Google it just for the sake of Googling it, just to make sure that, my understanding of a cooperation agreement was correct. So when you Google cooperation agreement with respect to prosecution in criminal matters and in a criminal case, the definition is that in a cooperation agreement, the defendant trades information and testimony with the promise of enabling the state to make a case against other defendants who, for one reason or another, are regarded as most deserving of the severest form of prosecution. So you understand everything that I just said right there, homie?
Yep.
Okay, and then it further goes to say that the cooperator makes, the person signing the cooperating agreement, the cooperator makes a set of promises and assumes potentially onerous and protracted obligations. These will at least include interviews and debriefings and may involve undercover action or observation and reporting back to whoever they signed a cooperation agreement with. And in this case, according to the article, it was the Manhattan Prosecuting District Attorney's Office. The cooperator's obligations will probably continue into more formal stages with grand jury and trial testimony, which is what they're saying Troy Ave was about to do, testify at the trial, and perhaps testimony at retrials years later. The state must find a way, therefore, to keep the immunity grant or plea bargain contingent on the cooperator's substantial performance of the promised obligations. So, homie, just this right here is too much for me with respect to the entirety of how this whole situation is playing out. So all this, everything I'm about to say now is all public information that's on various blogs and websites, and these dudes, their own Instagram and Twitter accounts and all that. So, according to the homie Troy perspective, he was at the venue, whatever, and shit popped off basically, and he defended himself, right? That's his position. I don't know Tax Stone position because I never really paid attention to much of what he said because, like I said, I didn't really know him. I just knew through business dealings, the little homie, and I was always rooting for him. So, I wanted to follow him, make sure he good or whatever. If any time, I could offer some advice, legal or whatever, I could, shoot something to one of his managers or whatever, and holler at them. But the contact probably not the same no more since 2015, but that's not the hand on there. My point is this: in all of those interviews that I heard with the little homie presenting his position, he was always well spoken, kind of respectful, and just what appeared to be stating the facts as he knew it. To me, I never heard him, outright say this person did that or that person did this. Basically, I defended myself. I took a blicking from somebody that was trying to blick me with it, and I defended myself. Cool. That's solid, homie. All that's stand up. With all that being said and done, right? My thing was not one time in all of the interviews that I watched the little homie Troy Ave do, and even when he was on the Matt Hoffa podcast giving that interview, not one time did I ever hear him say, the police locked me up for that situation, charging me with my own homie's man down, and I know I didn't do it, so I just to get in front of it, I made a cooperation cooperation agreement with the government. So this is where shit starts to look shaky to me, right? This is to me from having gone through these experiences, and in my eyes, I'm like, damn, homie, it looks crazy now that this is being reported in the paper, because on all of the interviews that you gave, you had an opportunity to put this forth. And if he did put that forth, then pardon himself for me for not doing enough diligent research to pull that up. But I haven't came across that. And so this is the question that comes to my mind now. With me seeing, viewing these dudes without even knowing them, just from their mannerisms and the way they act and how they carry it, I'm viewing these dudes as solid dudes because this is what they present and show it. So I don't have any other reason to view them as anything other than that until, I give evidence or situations show me different. So now my question is this, right? And I told you in the beginning, I took no position with respect to the Math Hoffa and the China Mac situation. Those was two men airing their opinions, airing their, gripe out with each other, and they both said what they said, right? Matt Hoffa's position was, Troy Ave didn't come on his platform and say nothing else that he hasn't previously said on other platforms, right? China Mac was, you as a street dude shouldn't have even allowed him to do that because you know that this dude has an upcoming trial coming, and that type of interviews and stuff like that, one-sided, could sway a jury one way or the other. That's all facts. As street dudes, we know this, right? So now my question now is like kind of like would be directed towards Matt Hoffa. So if this article is in fact correct, right? And if the homie Troy Ave did sign a cooperation agreement in 2017 with the prosecuting attorney to prosecute Tax Stone, because I just broke down to you and read to you what a cooperation agreement was. If he did that in 2017, so now as a street dude, my question is, damn, Matt, homie, did before the homie came on your platform and said what he said, did you have any knowledge of this possible cooperation agreement? And if you did have knowledge of this possible cooperation agreement, would that have changed either you allow him to come on your podcast and talk, or would that have possibly changed the direction of the questions that will address to the homie Troy Ave that enabled him to open up that platform to even talk about the case? It looks not only does it look one-sided and biased now, but it's also starting to look suspect. Because, homie, I never heard about no cooperation agreement in 2017. And according to the article, right after the cooperation agreement, they went and got Tax Stone. Again, no affiliations with these dudes. But this is all Brooklyn history that we're talking about. I'm Brooklyn. A heavy part of it. So I have a right to have questions about this and to speak on this. I'm not of any other nationality or race or nothing. I'm the original man. And these are all original people. And this is a situation involving original people. And as an original man and an elder of these little young homies, I'm like, what's really good? Math Hoffa, again, shout out to Math Hoffa. You got a great platform going on. You got a great thing going on, homie. I support your battle music. I support what you're doing on the Brooklyn tip. But this is just Brooklyn conversation, homie. Like, I've never been on your show. I don't know you, so this is. This is just thoughts that's going through my mind, and I got this series over here, so this is something that I have to speak on because this is the ending of this same topic. Was the ending of my last joint with the court melee joint, because we ended on dudes with like not standing tall and standing firm. So now to segue that, right, and here's the perfect segue of that for me, right. And this is for the younger dudes listening, bro. The younger dudes listening who might not know how to deal with a situation when they get behind them closed doors with the police, and they're being interrogated, and they're being threatened, and in some cases they're being physically assaulted, and they telling you you're gonna get all of this time and you're never gonna see your family again. Homies, listen to me closely, little homies. All you have to do is remain silent and request an attorney. Now let's go through it and let's break it down. But let's, since we're talking about the Troy Ave situation, let's talk about the situation with respect to him. Now, that whole joint, like we said, was videotaped. It was caught on camera because of the surveillance cameras inside of the club, right? So now we know from the newspaper articles and the interviews and all that stuff that after that incident, because they saw the little homie Troy with a blicky in his hand, letting it go in the club, they automatically assumed that man down, the dude that was man down inside of the club. So my thing is, all of that stuff was recorded. Everything he said happened, and whatever else he didn't say happened, it's on that camera. So what people might not know is that at trials and all that, they have ways of enhancing everything for the purpose of a trial. They'll enhance everything and they'll put it on a big screen and play it off a projector, and they break it down into different scenes where they can stop it and play it at their convenience, all the way down to the last millisecond of anything. So anything that happened that night that was captured on camera will be presented in court during this Tax's upcoming trial. Here's my position. Again, I said that they charged Troy Ave with the man down. They had him locked up for a while. He got bailed out. Now, according to the newspaper article, he entered into a cooperation agreement with the government. Whether or not that cooperation agreement, in addition to the bail that his people's posted, was how he was able to get out of prison, we won't know until the trial progresses and goes further. But here's my position, homie. And this is a position that I can firmly stand on, and I want the little young homies to pay close attention to. If everything that man Troy Ave was saying out of his mouth with respect to that incident was the truth, and it happened exactly the way he said it happened, then there was no need for him to enter into a cooperation agreement with the government. If in fact that's what he did do, there was no reason for him to do that, because even if they charged him with the murder, all he had to do was sit tight, shut up, request an attorney, and fight the case. Because what he had was, if his facts are correct, he has corroborating evidence, which would be the video footage showing that he in fact was defending himself. So you didn't have to, you don't have to cooperate. You don't have to say nothing. Yo, boy, I was defending myself, and that's it. Look at the tape.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question. If the dude don't tell the police, the DA, none of that, but he just tells his lawyer exactly what happened, and his lawyer uses that defense in the case, is that the same thing as telling?
It all depends. It depends on if that information that the person gives his lawyer is information that he knows can be used to incriminate or harm someone else. In a self-defense case, especially in a self-defense case where there's video footage, the video footage is going to do all the talking. And then the lawyers, with their legalese and verbiage, will interpret and apply the law to it and figure it out. So you don't have to say, listen, all he had to do was say to his attorney, yo, I was defending myself. Somebody tried to down me, you know what I mean? And I disarmed them and defended myself. And if that's in fact what happened, then that's what the video footage is going to show, homie. So there's nothing else for that man to say, to have to say. You don't have to, like, why would you enter into cooperation agreement, especially with me detailing and reading you to the definition of what a cooperation agreement in a court of law is? That's saying that you're going to provide substantial testimony to and information and possibly be working throughout the entire course of the situation. It makes you look like an informant. That's what that does.